and make sure we don't have any crackling sounds. I'm gonna share. Okay. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Sure, we don't have any. I wanted to do this. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, or morning still. It's 11:30, and wanted to welcome you back to Watch Your Stop with Carice Williams and myself, Yvette Owens. We got great feedback from last week. Um, we're glad it could help you think about how you need to consider the cultures that you're in or the cultures that you're potentially going into, and really what's the right type of environment and setting that you want to be in or that works best for you to be able to just do your very best and feel good about what you're doing. So this week we wanted to talk about what do we want to talk about? We want to talk about you make sure you are professionally and personally stand your identity to position for you. As I said on my live last night, you we can choose any job. Um, we can go out there and search, and especially when people are feeling desperate, they can try to pick the first thing, and that really usually doesn't yield to something that's long lasting or uh,
Right.
even satisfying. So understanding and never negating the fact that times have changed for many people and we do need to pay rent, mortgage, car notes, and feed our kids and eat ourselves and things like that. We still need a job, but we're encouraging you today and going to give you some things to think about as you do that so you're very focused, more focused on those type of positions that fit you and fit where you're headed for the long run. So you're not just grabbing and in a desperate mode trying to grab anything. So let's talk about um, what make where do we want to make sure that we're people want to how they find that right position and what some of the things they should think about. What should they know about themselves,
Right.
right?
Yes. So I think one of the major things that we talked and the topics that we touched on last week is really finding purpose within the organization that you're going to or the one that you're already in, and how really once you have that purpose alignment, that's really where you can sort of understand, are you happy with the space that you're in? How do you navigate your trajectory? But one of those prerequisite steps to really finding out your purpose, right? It's really understanding, what are your core values? Who are you? How are you in an organization? How do you want to be led? What matters to you? And does that reflect around in the environment that you're staying in right now? So,
Right.
one of the things that we want to talk about today is really, how do you really figure out who you are? And so Yvette and I, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, and I thought about sort of how there's really two paths, right? You're either sort of in that space where you don't know who you are, or you think you know who you are and what you want, and sort of where you are right now, but that really, we're not really being intentional of paying attention to what actually matters to us. So, with that said, when we talk about sort of who you are coming into an organization, right? So a lot of us come out of college, or we're transitioning industries, and we're going into an organization, and we're going in with a lot of big ideas of where we want to go, right? And then you sort of look up to your from now, and you're either in the same place or you're not as happy with the things that you had originally wanted to do.
Right.
So really having that intentional as you go into those spaces with, where is it that I want to be? What are the things that matter to me? How can I make a difference based on my purpose and what really empowers me, right? And gives me sort of that autonomy to really be motivated, without having those things being intentional. You may actually not be fulfilling your purpose.
Right. And I want to really, you made a really good point. It's depending on at any stage where you are, right? So, those of us who may be on the farther end, we've gone a lifetime, a career, but you know what? There's a career after the career, and there's a purpose that continues beyond even your workspace. Or some of us may still be working maybe longer than what we intended to. Wouldn't it be great if we had that time to be something that we really enjoyed,
Mhm.
and not just something that you're tolerating or that you're dreading every day to go into? It's never ever where you're going. And so that means, all right, maybe you just went in, again, as I often say, heads down, just doing what you have to do, but never thinking about how does this really relate to who you are at your core, what you want to do, what really gets you going and wants to make you feel good about who you are and what you're doing every day. So this is absolutely for everyone, 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 everyone. We should all assess all the time, do some really good inventory. Or am I in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing in the right way with the right people?
Absolutely.
If you can
Absolutely.
answer all those questions and you feel good about the answers, then thumbs up to you. But if there's some questions, take the time to figure out what's really important.
Right, because I think you made an awesome point where a lot of the times we can really think that this only applies to early in career folks or those mid level. But I think really, when you think about the more season that you are in your career, that's really the time that you want to take to assess, okay, the trajectory that I wanted to go on, I've already met that path. And maybe the salary that I wanted to get, I've already gotten to that number and beyond. And so now when you sort of take away some of those things that we really need to survive or those original goals that we were having, you can really now assess what makes me happy, right? And you can
Yeah,
really have that leverage and that flexibility to be able to move around because now your basic needs are met. That's
yeah,
really sort of some of the best position to be in to really take stock into what you're doing and where you really could go, because that really is where
exactly.
your potential is.
Exactly. So when we talk about how do I figure all that out, I liken it to how businesses have to figure out how their brand is and how they're going to present their brand, right? So we're sharing with you, and I've posted it almost everywhere I could think of, a link to the information that we're sharing with you this week around how you define really who you are and what's important to you, and then you come up with that value statement that you can use as a navigation point that you can use to help you focus on that next position, that next project, that next movement that you want to do, right? You just need that value statement. What is that value statement? What do I want to be remembered as? And what do I want to create for myself? And that information is really going to be important for you to pick up from the various links that we share. But let's talk about I don't know, what are some of the most important things we have to consider when we're thinking about what's our value statement gonna really, what makes up our value statement and how do we get there? When you think,
Right.
how
So
do we
I
get
think
there?
that really is going to vary, right? But for me, it really is, what are those things that matter to me, especially within the organization, right? So for me, it's diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, championing, really all of those things that I are important to women of color, the Black community, the things that are happening around my day to day life, right? Those are the things that are important to me, and when those things are really when I pay attention and pour into that in every area, even in my professional life, I'm able to actually reach more of my potential because I'm actually reaching to the core of who I am and what it is that I care about and the people that I want to touch and the impact that I want to make. So really that's what it is. What do you care about? What's your value? And how can you actually make an impact? What does that impact look like
Right.
to the community that you would like to serve?
Exactly. And to your point, some people think it's only things that you think about early on, but you really don't have the answers to those questions until you've experienced
Right.
life, until you experience work. And I don't mean just, till you're old, but I mean until you at least start to awaken yourself up to, hey, there's more to me than just X, right?
Right.
There's more
Or
to
a
me than that.
position or a salary or
Right.
whatever it is.
Right. And whatever is really burning in your heart of hearts and you want to see fixed, more than likely, what solutions would you have liked to have had for you? And you feel yourself totally continuously gravitating to those things, then maybe you are supposed to be a part of that answer,
Right.
right? So you mentioned that you started to notice and understand around the whole diversity and inclusion because of some of the things you've experienced. Um, for me, it's the same, but and it goes a little beyond that because I think sometimes people are just behaving the way they do out of just pure practice and pure ignorance. I know some people feel like, oh, they know what they're doing, and they're being, it's their bias, and they know their bias and whatever. But a lot of us don't know about our biases.
Right.
We don't know that we're leaning towards one way and we're treating people away because of something that happened in us or things like that. So, to really get down to my value statement, I have to figure out, do I have any biases? What biases do I need to get rid of? Or what biases do I see in others that I really want to help awaken and let them know, hey, this is not cool.
Absolutely.
This is not,
Absolutely.
you might not be aware of this, but this is not where you want to go. And part of it, you can't fix it for someone, but at least if you can make them aware of it, then then they start their journey on their value statement, right?
Right. But that, to your point, really takes that internal awareness. And so, even a lot of the times when we think about organizations, right, and where we want to pivot to, and the career that we want to have, and the space that we really want to be in as employees, we get invested with whatever culture that we're in. Understanding our own values, that really helps you to see the value of the organization that you're working in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't have any of that awareness, that's really where that comes in, where you're just there and your head's down because there really is no bigger picture. Every
Right.
organization has a value statement, and you should have a value statement as well and figure out how
Exactly.
to fit in with whatever that organization is. Otherwise, neither of you are reaching that potential because now I have someone from an organization standpoint where I don't know how to coach and mentor and really
Right.
pour into and tap into them because they don't really understand what their value and what they're really adding. And for you, the same thing. If you understand your values, you can either hold your organization accountable and hold them up to that standard and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you can look out for the things that they're investing in that tie to your value, or
Right.
you can actually take the steps to move on to the place that's going to really align with what you want to do.
Yeah, so let's make it even more practical, right? There are companies and there are individuals who are conservative. There are companies and there are and individuals who are more progressive. There are companies and
Mhm.
individuals who want more relaxed environments, and not one is a right or wrong answer. It
Right.
is. Um, if I'm more of a free spirited and I really want to let the ideas fly around and I just like to do that and I need an environment that welcomes that, then I should look for that.
Right.
I need to know that about me.
Right.
Now that's not to say that a conservative company can't look for and won't bring in a free spirited because those who are unequal attract one another, right? Opposites attract one another, I guess I should say. Because they do need that fresh look. You can't be so conservative and so so traditional and still survive in a world that's changing every day.
Right. Right. So I think to your point, it's really going to be important when you do talk about sort of some of that radical change, maybe bringing in someone that is free spirited. But I think from a company perspective, going in with the intent that, hey, I am bringing in this person and I'm going to value their ideas and value the change that they're bringing, that is going to be important to make sure that your company is actually on sort of that pivotal track that it needs to be on, right? So
Right.
it's really about sort of the numbers and the optics and bringing them in. And there's really not that room for using the ideas and the strategies and really executing those in a way that you can either attract more free spirited and diverse talent. You can really impact the bottom line because I'm sure even at conservative companies, right, there are strategies that you can really lean into to sort of be more like the product or the tech
Right.
company that's really attracting this talent. And so you're really going to need to have those folks come in and actually advise.
Exactly. And so, again, whether you're a newbie or you've been on this road for a while, we have to answer a couple of questions. One is, what am I saying about me?
Right.
What do I say about me and how I am and who I am? And honestly, I bet you some people haven't said anything about themselves. And
Right.
because we're at least recently we've been talking about the pandemic, but let's be honest, for years, a lot of people haven't done that introspective and said, what do I really believe about Yvette? What do I really believe about Carice? What do you really believe about you? And if you get that down, then the next question would be, what do you believe about your future? What are you saying about your future? What are you saying about how you're helping to shape this world? Again,
Mhm.
people are probably not even thinking and asking that question, but you're obligated to. You should be.
Right.
You're here for a reason.
Right.
Sucking up this air for a reason. So, yeah, so what are you saying about yourself? What are you saying about you? And then I want to tread this question very carefully because I think sometimes people spend too much time here, and that is, what are other people saying about you? Now, and I want to tread that carefully because
Right.
um, I think we spend too much time listening to the criticism and what other people are saying, but sometimes woven in between that is a positive message about what people rely on you for
Right.
and what they think your value you bring to them.
Right. One of the biggest things
Yeah,
in your day to day life is feedback, right? So
right,
when you really think about what other people say about you, it's not what are they saying about me negatively, but what is the feedback that I've gotten, right?
right,
Good or bad, good
right,
or bad. And how does that really reflect who I am and what am I putting out there? And that really is going to help when you think about your brand. And to
right,
that point, really, how do you take that positive feedback? Because to your point, that sometimes it's hard because we don't really even think about sort of what do we say about ourselves? Nothing.
right,
We don't say
right.
anything, right?
I'm not saying
Um,
nothing.
so potentially that feedback may be a good starting point to say, hey, what do others say about me? What are the great things that others say about me? And how do I build that confidence in what they're saying so I can now say it about myself?
Exactly. And you don't have to agree with everything that someone says about you,
Right.
right? You have to figure out, I'll take this one, I'll leave that one. I'll take this one, throw that one away. I'll take that one, throw that one away.
Mhm.
To really figure out um, if that's your starting point, what is the feedback that resonates within you, that means something, that says, oh, yeah. And then start looking for those things all around you. So I'm comfortable in the coaching space because I've had somebody say, you do this everywhere you go. In every conversation, you end up asking people and challenging people on what are
Right.
they doing. And, okay, so they might put out a statement like, well, I really want to do this, or I really want to go there. And I'm going to follow up with a challenge. Well, what are you doing about it? How are you going to get there?
Yep.
And so that just when it just became I became aware that it was a part of my core, that teaching thing and that coaching is a part of my core, and I really want to see people succeed. Then I started focus on when I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, and how do I want to help it fashion and shape my future.
Absolutely. And I think for me, it was the same thing when once I understood my place in inclusiveness, right? So the more that I looked around in the acts that I was doing and the places that I was in corporations, or even really in my daily life, making sure that I'm having an inclusive conversation, a conversation that's about empowering others and empowering especially um, people of color or underrepresented groups or disenfranchised groups. Those are all the things that I cared about and I was focusing on. So once I started being intentional about it, right, then that really shaped where do I want to go in my career? Because I can
Right.
spend a lot of time in sort of where I've been before because I've put in a small investment here to
Right.
help you actually invest in yourself into where you are going to ultimately end up,
Exactly.
without asking those tough questions. Or really, sometimes it's experiences, right? Out of my
Hmm.
experiences, I said, okay, now reevaluating where I am, how do I actually assess and then move forward based on what I have today? It's very easy to get caught up in sort of what you've always been doing, and that's why we talked about for those seasoned folks, right? You can very get sidetracked by what you're always doing and where you are and what
Right.
you've been doing over the past 20 years. But once you take time to be intentional, what is it that you really want to do, and how can you pivot? Because it is never too late to pivot.
Right. And this is information that people can find out on by Googling it about different companies and stuff like that, about understanding who you are and your values and your core values and really what you want to do. Because the other thing is, I've learned doesn't mean I should be doing it. Because we can do a lot of things, but it's not our sweet spot, right?
Right.
And so, really, what we want to talk about is how do you get to that sweet spot and that place where you're really happy doing what you're doing, um, and not just because I can do it.
Right.
Because I can do it, but do I want to make a living at this? Do I want to, do this every day, all day long? Yeah, no. Some things I can do, I do not want to do all day long.
Right. I think one of the important things that I've learned over the years is really paying attention to the things that strengthen you, and it may not be what you're good at.
Right.
Really, truly, the things that you really find happiness and you're strengthened by doing daily may not be things that you're good at, and things that you're good at you may not like doing or feel empowered by at all.
Right.
So really understanding that is one, helpful for you, and then two, to that point, as you're going to look into organizations, right? There's a ton of information on the internet and finding out how you can actually get into those spaces, but you actually need to be looking with the lens of what your value is and what do you want to do before you can get into that organization. And so you can filter out a lot of things that really aren't your value or aren't your core by just having that sort of intentional piece of thought in your mind.
Right. And to the viewer who just mentioned around, you're absolutely right. We um, don't even see our own value because we're so busy just doing and performing. And I have been one of those who have been guilty of it. And which also speaks to a strength because you're busy and you're doing these things because people are relying on you, organizations are relying on you, and you getting this feedback that, oh, just give it to Yvette, or just give it to Carice, or just give it to them because this is what they will do, and it keeps you busy and doesn't doing.
Yep.
Is this something that I like to do? And is this also bringing me satisfaction just because I'm always the answer to somewhere? I'm just performing
Right.
the people. And really, we perform for other people because sometimes we're looking for acceptance. I'm just going to be really transparent, right?
Right.
It's like we've been taught to, okay, make people happy, get the good grade, get the next bonus. And when you do that, but it's really not resonating or it's not connecting with who you are and what you really feel satisfied or fulfilled with, then you might need to take the real courageous step and shift.
Yep. And to your point, right? So it really is twofold, because one of the things where we talked about last week when we identified who you are, right? So that one of the things that we talked about is really being an achiever. And with being an achiever, you do perform. And one of the things that you want to get things done, you want to accomplish it, even if you're
Right,
not accomplishing your purpose, you're not really accomplishing anything that's of value to you, but you're achieving and you're
right,
performing and you're doing. And sometimes it's easy to get caught up in organizations where you're just doing and you're getting the accolade or the pat in the back, but it's really not what you want to do, right? And then
right,
you look up years from now and you've accomplished nothing that you had wanted for yourself.
right,
So, but that's something of who you are, right? You're not going to not be an achiever, but
right,
being intentional by understanding that, hey, this is something that can happen, right? That can get
right,
caught in a trap, will help
right,
me to say no. How do I feel about something that's being given to me that I want to jump on and just accomplish, but it's not serving what I'm doing? So how do I learn how to say no to those things?
right. And I want to make it even personal because some of us get trapped with family, right?
Yep.
And I mention it in the book, Conquering Corporate Enemies, Mind, Personalities, and Situations. And there's some scenarios that I address where different coming into the organization, new to the environment, um, had to struggle and balance the pull on them um, outside of the organization and inside the organization. But getting back how this relates to the family, our families can be relying on us for so many things that we become a crutch. And so we're performing and we're busy being
Right.
everybody's crutch
Yep.
and not being true to who we are, or not being true to, or even finding out who we are
Right.
and what we should be valuing. And then once we get there, this is the space that I am best in. I'm here for you all day long in that space when it makes sense for me, but I can't be all over the place for you as a family member, or even community member. We want to help and things like that, but people sometimes pull on you when they're not willing to do the work.
Yep. Yep. And I think one of the
How they
important
contribute.
things, yes. And I think one of the important things when you even touched on sort of family, right? I think even when we talk about how do you define who you are and what other people say about you, it is very easy at times for us to fall into the pattern where we believe what our family, who they say we are, because
Right,
they're a family, right? And they should
right,
know us best and we've been raised, but really and truly, oftentimes they are the ones who have the blinder on who you are becoming because they've
right.
known who you were or who you grew up to be, or whatever the case may be. So that's
Exactly.
really one of those spaces where it becomes important to really filter out that what others say about you, because it's
Mhm.
really what's feedback, right? And
Right.
how to be objective about assessing your own feedback that you've gotten and really
Exactly.
say, apply it to who you are. And sometimes, like I said, it's valuable as a starting point because you may not have been aware at all. You may not have been looking into what are the things that you've been doing, what are the things
Right.
that you care about, what are you putting out there. So it's a good starting point, but that not let it not be your end all be all at all.
Exactly. Exactly. And it takes a lot of courage to pull back and away from some of those things that people who are very, very close to you have said about you,
Yep.
that no longer fit. And one thing I do know is that the more you become true to who you are, and the more you really define um, your value statement, your vision statement, the more people will respect it and they'll come along
Yep.
eventually.
Yes, but
And
you have to be. confident in it because it's who you are. You have to let
Exactly.
them know who you are, not let them tell you who you are.
Exactly. Exactly. And this all again pulls into when we're talking about watch your step around how you really want to go into the next thing. And it could be at the company that you're in, it could be in the organization that you're in, or it could be moving to a new place. But you really want to make sure that you know and have a value statement about who you are so you know what you're bringing to the table. Excuse me. And what you're looking for, and that they can respond to so that you both win, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, we have some materials for you again this week that if you would click on the link, I actually have a picture of it. Let me just show you what it looks like when you see the link. Um, and when you click on it, you will actually have access. Yep. So you'll actually have access to this. We talk about reaching your personal best professionally, and we challenge you in there's space in there for you to answer your question about
Yep.
you saying about you. What are you saying about your future? And then branding you. And there's specific steps that you can go through to really figure out what your brand is and determine it. And then at the end, we give you space where you can actually make that value statement, that vision, that mission statement around who you are, and so that it helps you to start to get to where you want to be.
Yep. I agree. This is probably one of the most sort of detailed outline that I've seen, really, that you can get to the core of really building a personal brand and a mission statement that you're going to be confident in, and having a starting place if you really don't have one right now, into
Right.
figuring out how do you actually break that down.
Right. And this all then for those who are looking for that next position. And even though and again, I say that and then immediately I'm correcting myself, it should translate into what you have on your resume, right? So don't just talk about, I've done X, I've done this job, I've done that job, but use language that talks about the strengths and the values that you brought and what you've learned and contributed in those positions,
Right.
right? Just don't chronicleize and categorize each position that you had, but you want that language that you use in your resume to really bring you to life to the person who's reading it. And we should always keep our resumes updated. It becomes our bios when we're out there speaking, or when we're out there, just even if you're also an entrepreneur, it helps people to buy into your vision and to really maybe even invest if you keep that kind of information updated, so
Absolutely.
you don't have to redo it in a panic, because
Mhm.
do it in a panic then it's not going to be as good as if you time,
Yep.
right?
And not only just your resume, right? All of your professional platforms, and I'll say professional. So your LinkedIn, sort of really anything that you have out there. If it's you're an entrepreneur and you have a personal website, your personal website, making sure that as you really build that out and define what that mission and vision is, then that's aligning in all of the spaces that people actually could get in contact with you.
Right. And I know for myself, I've gone over journeys and revisited that and revised, all of my pages as I learn more about who I am and what I really want to do, how I'm shaping my future. So we all need to do that to make sure it all aligns, and really think about social means social. So if they can find you on one platform, they can find you on another. So be clear that where they find you, that's what you want them to find.
Mhm.
Because everybody is, again, how do you fit and how do you make sure you fit into an organization, and how does it all align with you? It has to be aligning where they find you. And people will look for you in multiple places. So
Absolutely.
get rid of the crazy. Get rid of the crazy. Um, or make sure it's very clear that it's your personal page. But again, people will find you,
Yep.
right?
Agree.
So, did you have any other thoughts that you wanted to share before we wrap up for today?
No, no, I think we covered everything. There's always, again, multiple steps that we can take, right? So this defining who you are is really the first step. We can always have a conversation eventually on how do you translate that into sort of where you want to be, and then really start to research different organizations, or really even if you're going to start your own business, and how you can really get to that space. So I know
Right.
Yvette is an awesome coach, and she can do that. I have a ton of resources. You can submit this as really a topic of conversation that you want us to cover. So you can
Right.
reach out to her through email, and all of her social, all of the Diplomat Chronicles social platforms are up as well.
Yes, yes, I do have, I think, someplace here. Yes, so please do contact me. Thank you for saying that. Um, yeah, please do contact me. Here's my contact information as well, where you can reach me. We will be back next week to talk about more about really those biases and really how um, wherever you are, how you watch for evolving of the culture, right? Um, because companies, as we said last week, are going to be evolving after the
Mhm.
pandemic and they're going to shift. They know that it's very, very important for them to, some of them are recognizing more that they do have to play in that diversity space and inclusion space. They have to do things differently.
Yep,
Now, if they're a staple company and things, they can continue to do that, do what they do no matter what, because everybody has to come to them anyway. Again, okay, they are. But there are many who are rethinking their platform. There's many who are rethinking how they are doing business, and you want to make sure you know the signs to watch out for, uh, to the things to pay attention to.
absolutely.
We were talking about earlier that sometimes we don't pay attention until we are burned or we're stung or we have been
Jaded. We
hurt,
become jaded.
right, become jaded, really hurt. So we then start paying attention to, wait, you're saying you're diverse and you're inclusive, but I'm not seeing evidence of that. So I want to talk more about that next week. Please share this, share it everywhere. We want to make sure everyone is fully equipped and empowered to go out and really make the difference for themselves and for the rest of us who are waiting for them to show up
Yeah,
as themselves. Because we're waiting for you to show up with the value that you bring.
absolutely.
Thank you all and have an awesome weekend. For all the mothers, happy Mother's
Yes. Happy Mother's Day.